Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 23rd September 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So, let's get started with our discussion and let us see the list of the topics we are going to discuss in this lecture. So, let us have a brief introduction regarding the topics. So first topic we are going to discuss it is about ex gratia for COVID-19 deaths. So what happened, and already we know that due to this COVID-19 pandemic, number of people they lost their life. So here one petition mainly filed in Supreme Court in month of June 2021 mainly said that yes, already we know that due to this COVID-19 there are a number of deaths which incurred in India. So people who lost their lives, so to their families, to their kins, so government should provide ex gratia of rupees 4 lakh per death. But now in this context, here Minister of Home Affairs came up with a clarity. So that clarity it is given in this topic. So this will be important from disaster management point of view. And next topic is about Covishield. So there is a one issue regarding this Covishield vaccine between India and UK relations. We are going to discuss that. That is important from health point of view and even international relations. So already you know that this Covishield got this WHO approval as well. And next topic it is about WHO new guidelines regarding this emissions. So this will be important from environment and ecology, and even we can talk about this topic in one more dimension regarding so what will be the impact on health as well. So that will be important from health, which comes under GS paper 2. Next topic is about Kaziranga National Park. So this Kaziranga National Park it is in news because a large number of horns of this rhinoceros they mainly fired, burnt to ashes. So because of this is the news. Again this will be important from environment and ecology. And next one is Quad. Next topic is about Quad. So this topic will give some number of insights regarding upcoming meeting of this Quad. So this will be important from our international relations which comes in the GS paper 2. So which are the countries part of this Quad? So which are the 4 countries which are members of this Quad? Let me know in comment box. So from yesterday onwards I noticed that so number of students are responding to the questions. So it is one of the happiest news for me because if you're responding in comment box, it will be like encouraging me to do more and more videos and to share more and more information with you. So please try to comment in comment box regarding whenever I am giving you questions. So that will be helpful for you and will be also motivating me. Okay. And next topic we are going to discuss is about inflation. So this inflation topic already we discussed, but this article why I selected because it is giving some new insights regarding measurement of inflation. So this article is important from economy point of view which comes under GS paper 3. And next topic is about sea level rise. So this topic is at most important from our environment and ecology point of view. So these are the some important topics we are going to discuss. Apart from these 7 topics, there are 2 important topics which are present in page number 6. First one it is about collegium system and the second one is about GST council. So regarding this GST council we had enough discussion. And regarding this collegium, please go back to Polity lecture series, and in that in Supreme Court I discussed about this collegium topic in a very great detail. So please watch that. So there is nothing much more than that what I discussed in that lecture. So now let us try to see first article. Here you can see the title. Title says rupees 50,000 for each COVID death. So this is the thing which mainly says. Okay, so if you see this title you can understand. Earlier in petition they asked for 4 lakh per death, and now Minister of Home Affairs said they are going to give about rupees 50,000 per death. Now let us try to see context. If you see context, it mainly says that our Ministry of Home Affairs, which ministry? Ministry of Home Affairs informed Supreme Court that National Disaster Management Authority, which mainly recommended for the payment of rupees 50,000 as ex gratia assistance to next of kin of those who died of COVID-19. So who died of this COVID-19 So for their children or for their parents or for their family members, they will get an ex gratia of 50,000 rupees, and this 50,000 rupees recommended by National Disaster Management Authority, and including those who succumb to the virus while involved in relief operations and preparedness activities, and even who lost or who succumbed to this virus while involved in relief operations and even some preparedness activities, they will also get ex gratia of 50,000 rupees. If you see some important details which are given in this topic, it mainly says that the financial aid would be given, that would be given mainly provided that cause of death is certificate as COVID-19. So who can get this ex gratia? So people who lost their life because of this COVID-19, and they will get some death certificate, right? So in that death certificate, it should be like died because of COVID-19. So whenever they are having death certificate due to this COVID-19, so and so person lost their life, so they will get this financial aid, and money would be provided from the state by the states, especially from the State Disaster Response Fund. So under the State Disaster Response Fund, the states, they will mainly provide this money, and the disbursement of the amounts would be carried out by District Disaster Management Authority or district administration concerned to the families. So the disbursement of amount will be carried out by District Disaster Management Authority, or we can say district administration. Okay, so these are some important details. And now let us try to understand what is the background, why Ministry of Home Affairs came up with the decision. So if you go back to the June 2021, so what happened in June 2021? Supreme Court in a judgment, Supreme Court gave a judgment on June 30, which mainly based on a petition which filed by advocate. So advocate name is Gaurav Bansal. So this advocate mainly filed a petition in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court gave the judgment regarding this petition on June 30. And here this decision or this judgment of Supreme Court directed National Disaster Management Authority to recommend guidelines regarding some ex gratia assistance to the families of persons who died due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And this mainly mandated under Section 12. So even under Section 12 of Disaster Management Act of 2005, so this ex gratia which is mentioned. Okay, so now here NMDA came up with recommendations, and it came up with a recommendation like to provide about 50,000 rupees as ex gratia now. So now many students, they don't understand what is the meaning of ex gratia. I am saying ex gratia, ex gratia, ex gratia. I told more than 10 times in this lecture regarding this ex gratia. So first you have to understand what is the meaning of ex gratia. Ex gratia, it is nothing but, in simple layman terms, I will try to explain you. So it is nothing but compensation payment. Ex gratia is nothing but compensation payment which will be given by any government or organization is prepared to compensate victims. So whenever there is any accident or similar, but not to admit liability to pay compensation for causing the event. For example, let us take there is an organization or there is a factory. So in this factory, they will go for preparation of so and so products. So in this factory, there are many laborers who are working. So because of some fire accident or some electricity failure, that led to loss of, let us take 10 people. 10 people lost their life. So here the company owner here. So company owner, he will pay some compensation to the families of so and so persons who lost their life. So this compensation is called as ex gratia. So this is about organization. So if we are talking about government, yes, we are having government at state level and as well as central level. So for example, at state level, let us take one disaster happened. For example, earthquake. Okay. For example, we can say lightning strike will also leads to death of many people. So whenever there is any death which happened because of a natural disaster or any man-made disaster, so government will compensate those families. Okay, so this is called as ex gratia. So I hope you understand what is the meaning of ex gratia, right? So ex gratia, in simple words, it is a compensation payment which is mainly made by government or organization, mainly to compensate the victims who met with an accident or anything, okay, which led to loss of their life or even disability. So this is the about echinacea. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says Covishield fine but not Indian certification. It is according to UK. So this article mainly talking about this Covishield vaccine. So already we know that this Covishield vaccine got World Health Organization approval. So whenever any vaccine which got approved from this WHO, that is COVID-19 vaccine, then whenever any person who want to move from country 1 to country 2, so if this person who already take the vaccine which is approved by WHO means, so whenever this person who is entering into country 2, there is no need of following this COVID-19 protocol norms. For example, mandatory like we can say mandatory that thing, what is that, we can say like mandatory quarantine. So it is not necessary actually, but here this is the one issue between India and UK now. Even though Covishield got approval from WHO, the UK says that no, they need to go for mandatory quarantine for 10 days. So this is the one important issue. So now let us try to talk about this topic in a very great detail. If you see context, it mainly says that it is an unexpected move. It is an unexpected move that United Kingdom, UK added Indian Covishield vaccine. It is mainly added to recognized vaccines, recognized list of vaccine. But this is the one important good thing here is UK added our Covishield vaccine under this recognized vaccine. But one cause of concern here is UK mainly refused to recognize this Covishield vaccine certificates given to those administered the vaccine in India. So after once this Covishield or Covaxin is administered, so we will get one certificate regarding so and so person took this vaccine on so and so date at the so and so center, right? But here UK is not going to recognize that vaccine certificate. So this is one important cause of concern. If you talk about some more details, it mainly says that the decision, which means Indian travelers to UK, they will still to be subjected to 10 days of quarantine rules. So that means even the persons who took this COVID-19 vaccine, that is Covishield from India, and whenever they are entering into UK, so they need to follow compulsorily 10 days of quarantine in UK. So because of this thing, it mainly expected to further fuel the rift between these both countries. So we are saying this is a one of discriminatory practice, and in this way it also threatens the reciprocal measures against, even as officials from the both countries, they continue to discuss issue. So here what happened, whenever this vaccine is not accepted by UK and whatever the certificate we are giving, it is not approved by this UK means, so it will also threaten the reciprocal measures. And our leaders, our officials from the both countries, they need to talk about this issue. And according to amended UK government rules set to be adopted from October 4th. So from October 4th, they need to adopt some new amendment rules. Okay, so in these new amended UK government rules, which mainly contains approved formulations of 4 approved vaccines, those vaccines include AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, and as well as Janssen. So these are some important vaccines that are mainly approved, and even AstraZeneca's Covishield, Vaxzevria, Moderna, Takeda, so they mainly qualified as approved vaccines as well. So India continued to remain in the list of amber countries and not included in the list of the countries whose public health bodies they were recognized for issuing these vaccine certificates. So yes, now India is mainly present in this amber list. So in this amber list, so what are the certificates we are issuing after administering the vaccines? So these are the public health bodies that are not included in the list of the countries of UK. So this is one cause of concern. So if you are talking about further more important facts, so UK mainly cleared about 18 countries including Canada, Denmark, Antigua, Barbuda for green list. India, it is located in amber countries list. Now let us try to focus on some important facts regarding this Covishield. So if you see this Covishield, so the name which is mainly given to Oxford's AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. So technical name of this Covishield is AZD122 or CHADOX OX1NCOV19. So these are some technical names of this Covishield. So where this Covishield is produced? It mainly produced by University of Oxford in collaboration with Swedish-British drug maker, that is AstraZeneca. So if you're talking about manufacturing partner, it is SSI, Serum Institute of India. It is a manufacturing partner of this Covishield. So if you're talking about what are the constituents, so one important thing that you need to remember here is, here in this vaccine we are mainly using vector. Vector, it is adenovirus. So this adenovirus, which is commonly found or commonly one of important cause for cold in chimpanzees. And this viral vector mainly contains genetic material of the SARS coronavirus to spike proteins, such that whenever we are taking that vaccine, so our immune system will recognize antigens and it will try to produce antibodies. So in this way we will get immunity against this COVID-19. So this is gist of this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says World Health Organization tightens global air quality norms. So this article mainly talking about this global air quality norms, our World Health Organization, which came up with the new guidelines. So this will be important from environment and ecology, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. And now let us try to see context. So World Health Organization, WHO, it came up with its first ever update since 2005. So this update regarding global air pollution standards. So recent update, it is about global air pollution standards. So it is mainly in recognition of emerging science in the past decade that mainly impact air pollution on health. It is much more serious than earlier. So what happened now? We are facing one important challenge of climate change. So this climate change mainly caused because of one important primary reason here is greenhouse gas emissions. So because of this, our World Health Organization, which came up with the first ever update since 2005, which is mainly highlighting about global air pollution standard, and it came up with new regulations or new guidelines. If you see details, it mainly says that the move does not have an immediate effect in India, as our national ambient air quality standards do not meet WHO's existing standard. So whatever the new guidelines, whatever the changes that WHO is coming up, which will not affect India, because whatever the national ambient air quality standards are present in India, they do not match this already existing WHO standards. So the government has decided a dedicated National Clean Air Program, NCAP, and in this NCAP, in this India's National Clean Air Program, which we are mainly aiming for 20 to 30% of reduction of this particulate matter concentration by 2024, especially in 122 cities. Okay, so in our National Clean Air Program, here main target is 20 to 30% of reduction of this particulate matter. So what is this particulate matter? So if you see in air, we can see small particles like particulate matter 2.5, particulate matter 10. Okay, for example, fly ash, etc. They are present. So mainly we need to decrease the concentration of this particulate matter concentrations by 2024, especially in 122 cities. So why 122 cities? So these cities, they do not met this national ambient air quality standards when calculated from 2011 to 2015. So because we are focusing on this 122 cities. And if you're talking about what is the significance, so if you see the significance, it will soon become part of policy discussions. like for example climate targets, and in this climate targets we need to decrease this greenhouse gas emissions. And once the cities and the states they are set targets for meeting these pollution emission standards, finally that will lead to overall changes in the national standards. As you all know that this 122 cities they are releasing large amount of these greenhouse gases and are not meeting the standards. So whenever we are making the standard or whenever we are keeping the standards that to be maintained by the cities, and once these cities they are achieving or they are mainly coming towards their target, then that would lead to overall changes in our national standards. So this is the thing which mainly said. And if you are talking about some important data, so whenever I am keeping boxes with colors means that will be very important facts, okay, that you can use in your mains and even that will be important from your prelims. So if you see the data which is given here, it mainly says that the upper limit of annual particulate matter 2.5, it is as per 2005 standards, which is about 10 microgram, okay, 10 microgram per meter. And now it is mainly revised to decrease towards 5 mg per meter. And next one is 24-hour ceiling used to be 25 microgram but has now dropped to 15. So per entire day it is about 25 microgram and it decreased to 15. And India's national ambient air quality standards lastly revised in year 2009. And in that revision, which mainly found that to specify an annual limit of about 60 microgram per meter, okay, 60 microgram per meter, that is for particulate matter 10, and 100 microgram per meter for 24-hour period. And next one is similarly 40 microgram per meter for PM 2.5, that is particulate matter 2.5 annually, and 60 on 24-hour period. So these are the some important data. And next one is why we need to focus on this air pollution, why we need to focus on these emissions. Because if you see data globally, so every year about 7 million premature deaths that are happening, and because of this we can see loss of millions more healthy years of life that is seen due to this air pollution. So it is an urgent need, mainly we need to focus on this, how to reduce this emission. And now let us try to talk about some facts regarding World Health Organization. Students, if you are preparing not only for UPSC but also for your state public service examinations, so you need to know some GK regarding this so and so organizations. So we are also going to cover that. So if you are talking about this World Health Organization, so it is one of United Nations specialized agency for health, and this agency founded in year 1948. So here WHO, it is a United Nations specialized agency and it mainly founded in 1948. Its headquarters located in Geneva, Switzerland. And there are about 194 member states and 150 country offices and 6 regional offices are mainly present for this WHO. And this one is, it is an intergovernmental organization, and this WHO mainly works in collaboration with the member states, usually that is by through Ministry of Health. And WHO will provide leadership regarding global health matters. It also helps mainly to shape health research agenda and even setting up of norms and standards, articulating evidence-based policy options, and even it will be helpful to provide technical support to countries and even monitoring and assessing the health trends. So these are the some important facts regarding this World Health Organization. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says 2,500 rhino horns. It is mainly talking about rhino horns turned to ashes in Assam. Okay, so if you see this image, you can understand these are the one-horned rhinos, that is rhinos' horns. So these horns are burnt into ashes. So now let us try to see this topic. This will be important from environment and ecology, which mainly comes under GS paper 3. And here you need to focus on what is this Kaziranga National Park, where it is located, and some GK regarding this national park. If you see context, it mainly says that the world's largest stockpile. So the world's largest stockpiles of rhino horns. Rhino horns was consigned to flames in eastern Assam's Boka Ghat. It is the headquarters of Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve. So in this Kaziranga National Park and Tiger Reserve, so there are large number of these rhino horns. They were burnt into ashes. If you see details, it mainly says that the event timed with World's Rhino Day, and it was mainly aimed at dispelling myths that have driven the illegal horn trade and as well as poaching of the animal. So one important threat which is mainly faced by this one-horned rhinoceros is for the horns which they present, and even these animals are poached mainly for illegal horn trade. So here this event mainly timed with this World Rhino Day, and here we want to focus on one thing here is we want to dispel and we want to dissolve the myth that these horns of this rhinoceros, they are having medical value or medicinal value. So because of this medicinal value, there is high demand for this one horn rhinoceros horns. Okay, for this horns of this rhinoceros, there is high demand in international market. So because of this, there is illegal trading, horn trade and even poaching that can be seen here. So here wildlife officials said that about 2,479 of 2,623 horns, they are mainly stored in 12 district treasuries. Since 1979, they were burnt when 6 large iron pyres placed in a stadium at Boka Ghat. It is about 240 kilometers east of this Guwahati. So what happened since 1979 mainly to dissolve this myth, they are having some medicinal value or medical value. So we came up with burning of this horns of this rhinoceros. So these pyres, they were lit remotely by using drones. So here one more application here of drones is it will be also used to lit fire. And if you are talking about why because organized. So this event mainly organized to convey the world that rhino horns are just a mass of compacted hair and they have no medicinal value. To show this thing, to showcase of this thing, that is these rhino horns, they are just made up of compacted hair and they do not have any medicinal value. And in this context, this forest official mainly urges people not to kill these rare animals or buy their horns based on this superstition or myth. As well as all horns recovered from these rhinos during they are mainly died naturally or during disasters and even accidents. So in this incidents, they mainly collected these many number of horns. So now let us try to see where is this Kaziranga National Park is located. So here we have this Kaziranga National Park which is located in state of Assam. So here we can see here Brahmaputra river which is mainly flowing here. So if you are talking about some facts regarding this Kaziranga National Park, it is mainly located in state of Assam. And this Kaziranga National Park which mainly covers 42,996 hectares. And here it is mainly present in Brahmaputra flood plain. And if you are talking about legal status, which made it declared as National Park in year 1974, and it has been declared as a tiger reserve since 2007. And if you are talking about international status, so it was declared as UNESCO's World Heritage Site in 1985. And even it mainly recognized as important bird area by BirdLife International. So if we are talking about important species, it is very much famous for this one-horned rhinoceros, and we can also see other fauna like elephant, Royal Bengal tiger, Asiatic water buffalo, etc. So these are some important facts that you need to remember regarding this topic. And I hope it is clear. Now let us move on to next topic. Title says improving the economic gain. So this article mainly talking about objectives of Quad. So if you are talking about this Quad, it is mainly having these 4 members. So let me know in comment box which are the 4 members. I already asked this question, right? So now let us move on to this topic. If you see central theme, it mainly says that businesses can help meet the objectives of Quad. So this article says that yes, whenever we want to reach the objectives of this Quad, we need to focus on this business. So now let us try to understand this topic. So if you're talking about this Quad, why it is in news now? So this Quad contains 4 members, right? So they include Australia, Japan, India and US. So Quad mainly meets in landmark fiscal summit this week. So because of this is in news. And in this summit, what they are going to talk? They are going to talk mainly regarding how to strengthen strategic and as well as defense pillars. So the agenda of this Quad here, they are mainly focused to talk about how to strengthen the strategic and as well as defense pillar across these 4 countries. So if you're talking about these 4 nations, they are vibrant democracies, and even these 4 countries, they have this open economies. That means they will go for trade with other countries. So there are 3 developed countries and 1 is emerging market, that is India. India is emerging market and other rest of the 3 countries, they include US, they include Australia and even Japan. They are somewhat developed countries than compared to of India. So now the Quad leaders, they met formally but virtually for the first time March in this year. So in this March they already met. So they came up with a joint statement, mainly captured the spirit of the Quad, and they mainly focused on stressing the democratic values, and they also came up with a pledge mainly to strengthen cooperation on defining challenges of the times. So they mainly talked about stressing about democratic values, and even they talked about strengthening of cooperation regarding the challenges they are facing in this Indo-Pacific region. And if you are talking about challenges they identified in this COVID-19 time, they found the challenges regarding economic and as well as health impacts due to this COVID-19 pandemic, and even they are facing number of threats regarding cyberspace. So there are number of cyber attacks that is seen even in India, and even critical technologies, quality infrastructure investments, and even there are many working groups that are working to set up this vaccines and as well as critical technologies and even climate change. So these are some challenges that they are facing now and they identified. So if you see some details, it mainly says that India's total trade with the 3 Quad partners, it is about $108 billion in 2021 to 2021. So this trade mainly accounts for about 16% of total merchandise exports and imports of India. And if you're talking about investment side, US, it is the second largest source of FDI, foreign direct investments in India. And if you're talking about Japan, it is one of the major infrastructure investment that is done in India. For example, you can talk about bullet train. So even in many projects in Japan, it is mainly investing in India. So if you are talking about FDI, it is a US, it is the second largest. And if you are talking about Japan, which is mainly investing in major infrastructure projects in India. So if you are talking about business partnership to advance our goals, for example, our goal it is to ensure free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. So these 4 participants of Quad, they must now activate the business partnership. So this business partnership that will meaningfully and that will definitely measure to align with economic and national strategic objectives they formed. And this one is in this economic partnership or business partnership, first pillar here is trade and investments. So here efforts should be done or to make by these members of this Quad mainly to increase their trade and investment in each other countries. So joint efforts by all Quad countries, they can help to establish alternative manufacturing hubs and even regional supply chains, they will be more diversified. And Quad could consider that adding a trade minister's interactions to its agenda, which may engage in lowering the trade barriers and even boost the trade linkages. So regarding whenever any country which is coming up with exports and imports, they are mainly facing tariff barriers and as well as non-tariff barriers. So they need to take some steps mainly to resolve this tariff barrier issues and as well as non-tariff barrier issues, such that finally it will boost the trade between these countries. And next one is they need to focus on innovative financing and even public-private partnership models So whenever we are focusing on this innovative financing and public-private partnership model, that may enlarge the space for private industry and will also support public funds. And next important priority area of what should be, they should focus on this climate change as well. So cooperation in multi-dimensions regarding this climate challenge, which mainly includes financing, transfer of technology, emission reduction, and even technology development, capacity building. So that will be very much helpful for mitigation and even adaptation as key aims. And we need to support governmental efforts. That will be very much critical now. So this is gist of this topic and I hope it is clear. Now let us move on to next topic. Title says the flawed calculation of inflation. So it is talking about measurement of inflation. There are some issues regarding this measurement of inflation. So if you are talking about inflation, what is the meaning of inflation? I discussed number of times. That is nothing but increase in the price. There is a price rise of goods and services in market, then this condition is called as inflation. So inflation target, it is 4 plus or minus 2, that is 2 to 6% are we need to maintain this inflation. So target here is 2 to 6%. So if you are talking about inflation, we are having mainly 3 types of inflation. So let me know those types of inflation, comment box, because we already discussed that. So now let us move on to this topic and let us try to discuss in detail. Let us try to understand what author wants to express. So the current official inflation rate does not correctly measure the price rise. So pleasant, so whatever the inflation that we are seeing now, so that we can't correct, we does not measure the price rise correctly. So this is the thing which is the one of the important perception of author. So now let us try to see why it is in news. So if you see from last 4 months, we are seeing there is a high wholesale price index which is about 10%, and next one is consumer price index which mainly crossed 6% in June. So from last 4 months onwards, we are seeing WPI and as well as CPI which is very much high. So this time it happening when the demand has been down. So here already whenever we see this inflation, so we are having T types, that is demand pull, cost push inflation as well as built-in inflation. So whenever the demand is high, that will lead to price rise normally. But here in this situation presently, demand which is low in the market. So why demand is low? There is unemployment. So because of unemployment, there is loss of incomes, there is no proper livelihood facilities, and even there is increasing of poverty. So because of all these reasons, now we can say demand is less. Though the demand is less, now we are seeing inflation in the market. So this is the first thing which mainly said by author. And if you see further more details, so there are 3 important things which mainly said in this article. First one is in month of April, May 2020. So the data regarding production and prices that could not be collected because of nationwide strict lockdown. So because of this nationwide imposition of lockdown, actually in month of April and May 2020, so it is very difficult. We did not even collected the data regarding production prices in the market. So later on we came up with unlock phase. So during this slowly unlock phase here, the current data on prices, especially from April to July 2021, they are not comparable with the same months. So how can we say there is inflation? For example, in month of August 2020, for example, let us take the price of, let us take a common example like, so for 10 apples, we can get for 100 rupees in August 2020. But if you see in August 2021, for the 10 apples, for the same 10 apples, we need to pay now 150 rupees. So earlier it is 100 rupees and now this year it is 150. That means there is a 50 rupees rise of price, right? So in this context, I can say that there is inflation of 50 rupees on 10 apples because we are comparing with the same month in last year. But if you say in the last year, in the same months, because of this COVID-19 pandemic, there is decrease in the production and there is a strict lockdown. So there is no proper data which is collected. How can we compare this year, this month's inflation with the last year August month, right? So this is the question which mainly posed by author. And second one is consumption basket is vastly different from poor, for the poor and for the middle class and for the rich. So because of this consumer price index, which is very much different for each section of these classes. For example, if you are talking about poor people, they will go for essential things, and for the middle income groups, they will go for essential things and as well as some amount of non-essential things. But if you are talking about these rich people, they will give the same priority for the essential and as well as non-essential things and as well as luxury goods. So here poor people, they will not go for demanding of luxury goods like rich. So because of this, here consumption basket of poor, which is different from middle and which is different from the rich. So because of this, we can't come up with this consumer price index as a whole. This is the second thing. And next important thing which mainly said by the author here is, during the lockdown and unlock in 2020, people largely consumed only essentials. And RBI data also shows that consumer confidence that mainly fell drastically from 105 in January 2020 to 55.5 in January 2021. So because there is lack of unemployment, there is lack of income. Okay, it is according to report. And next important thing is inflation data underrepresents services in consumption basket. So it is mainly talking about goods but not services. But if you are talking about services side, for example, health services which is provided by many hospitals had been soared, that had been increased, because they also need to maintain proper sanitation in their hospitals, and they need to provide sanitizers, and they need to clean their hospitals regularly. So because of all these things, to control or to prevent the transmission of this COVID-19, so they need to take some extra steps, extra works. So because of this, they also increased their charges. So now in this context, we can say there is an increasing of this health services charges. And not only this, even education cost has also been soared. So whenever we are moving towards online education, we need some gadgets like mobile phones, laptops, Wi-Fi, etc. So because of this, the cost for this education also had been increased. So if the rate of inflation is 10%, when we compare to the previous year, person has to spend 10% more to buy the same amount of the things, as I said earlier with an example of apples, right? So inflation does not matter here. So whenever the person's income which is increasing, that inflation will not matter. So for example, earlier I used to get 1,000 rupees as salary, for example. So I can buy these apples by investing 100 rupees for 10 apples. It is very easy for me. So in the same way, whenever the salary of mine which is increased to 1500, then I can easily spend 150 rupees on this same 10 apples for rupees 150. But if you see the same scenario, like, so my salary is just 10,000 rupees itself, but when I need to pay 150 rupees for apples, means I can't spend. So this is the thing which mainly said by author. So whenever a person's income is increasing, inflation is increasing, means it is not a problem, it is not a matter. But person's income rises, which is by less than 10%, but whenever they want to invest 10% on inflation, means it is a very, very tough thing for especially poor people and especially for the middle class people. So if you see data, it mainly says that in India, 94% of work, it is mainly in unorganized sector, and mostly they will earn low incomes and they will have very, very little savings. So here we cannot bargain for higher incomes as prices rise and they get hit by inflation. So because of further any lockdowns or because of this lockdowns which are already imposed, so wages have been declined, and these unorganized laborers or unorganized workers, they hit a lot because of this COVID-19 pandemic. So it also impacted their family budgets even. So demand has declined not only for non-essential things, but even essential things, especially for the middle income families and as well as poor families. And because of this, we can say there is slowing down of economic recovery, and even employment generation is not happen at a required pace. And it also impacts the government revenues. So whenever the government is not able to provide employment, means government need to provide some security for the people, government need to invest, or government need to provide free food, grains, so and so, like that will also increases the government revenue. and in this way it will also put pressures on government to cut back budgetary expenditure, and even it need to increase expenditure in the social sector. And whenever there is increase in the poverty, that will leads to another problems like malnutrition. Again government need to invest here to decrease this malnutrition. So in this way government need to take some steps. So now let us try to understand what are the factors that are leading to inflation. So if you're talking about factors, first one is government. It started increased taxation on energy to raise resources. So for example, on petrol and diesel, government started increasing its taxes, right? So whenever it is increasing taxes, it is good for government. Government will get revenue, and that revenue that can be used for social security schemes. But here, whenever the cost of this transportation fuels like petrol and diesel is increasing, overall goods and services in the market that will be increased, that will be leading to inflation. So this is the first thing. And next one is even in indirect tax also, it is a regressive tax which is increased, that is mainly impacting the poor people the most. And next one is because of this lockdown that also disrupted movement of supplies, goods, etc. And because of this disruption, that led to shortage of these goods, and that led to increase in price. And this one is even big businesses, they started raising the prices since there is no proper competition from the unorganized sector, because this unorganized sector they almost shut down and they all verge in closed down. So because of this, now these big companies or big businesses, they started increasing the prices. So these are the some important factors which are underlying inflation. So finally, author mainly says that the current official inflation rate does not correctly measure price rise since lockdown administered a shock to the economy. So in this way, because of this, what are the methods we are using for calculation of this inflation, which is need some modification. So this is just of this topic, and I hope it is at most clear. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says sea level rise is certain. So this article will be important from our environment and ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. And now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see the central theme, it mainly says that this has implications for the future even under the low emission scenarios. So even if you are decreasing these emission scenarios now, but in future we are going to see the sea level rise. So this is the gist of this topic. And now let us move into the topic, and let us try to understand this topic. So why it is in news? Recently IPCC report released. Okay, recently published this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Assessment report, mainly from Working Group 1. So from this Working Group 1, this IPCC report released. And this mainly provides most expansive scientific reviews on science and impacts of climate change. And this report, it is about reviews on the science and what will be the impact of climate change. So if you see details, it mainly says that this report discusses 5 different shared socio-economic pathways regarding greenhouse gas emissions. So first one is whenever we are releasing very low and low greenhouse gases emissions, means what happened, emissions will be decreased. Finally, if you are continuing for some years, then we can have some net negative greenhouse gas emissions. So when we are having very low and low greenhouse gas emissions, if you are having intermediate gas emissions, means we can say it will be net zero. But when we are having high and very high emissions, then we can double our current levels of emissions by 2100 or 2050 respectively. And even intermediate scenario, it is extremely likely that average warming will be exceeding 2% near mid-century. So even if you are releasing these greenhouse emission gases in intermediate level also, so our warming will be increased or exceeding 2 degrees centigrade. And if you see further more data, it mainly says that average global temperature. So the average global temperature is already 1.09 degrees centigrade, which is higher than the pre-industrial levels. And even this carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, which is about 410 ppm, okay, 410 ppm, which if you are considered with 1850, it was just 285 parts per million. And if you see, it is mainly close to 700 million people in the worldwide. They are living along the coast. So why we need to talk about these greenhouse gas emissions? So because of this greenhouse gas emission, that will lead to global warming. So because of this global warming, whatever the ice which is present in the polar regions and even the third pole region, that will melt. So whenever these glaciers are melting, that will lead to increase in the sea level rise. So why we need to talk about the sea level rise and why we need to think about this? Because in the coastal areas throughout the world, about 700 million people are living. So 700 million people. So just imagine the number here. It is 700 million people across the world. They live across the coast, and as well as they continue to be planned to expand the coastal cities. And now many states and many governments are talking about how to expand these coastal cities. But whenever there is increasing of sea level rise, that will impact these people at most. And this one is by understanding the risk which is involved from the climate change and sea level rise, especially in the 21st and 22nd centuries. It is very much crucial now. And the sea level rise will continue after emissions no longer increase, because oceans, they respond slowly to warming. And if you're talking about especial details regarding this sea level rise, so if you're talking about the sea level rise, so this sea level rise occurs because mainly due to expansion of warm ocean waters. So as you know, whenever the water which is getting heated, it will expand, right? So because of expansion of these warm ocean waters, and even whenever there is a melting of glaciers, and even the melting of ice sheets in the Greenland and Antarctica, that will finally leads to increasing of sea level rise. And the global mean sea level, which mainly rose by 0.2 meters, that is between 1901 and 2018. And the average rate of sea level rise is 1.3 mm per year, and mainly rose to 3.7 mm per year by 2006 to 2018. And if you're talking about uncertainties we are facing now, so ice sheets, they can destabilize rapidly. So whenever there is increasing temperature or global warming, then we can see these ice sheets, they can destabilize and they will start melting. And whenever they are melting, they can collapse. So if you watch in YouTube, there are many videos regarding ice sheet collapse and the collapsing of glaciers. So you can understand, if you watch that videos, then you can understand easily how it can increase the rapid sea level rise. And the changes in the ocean, ice-ocean interactions. So because of these changes in these ice-ocean interactions, they can cause extensive and as well as a rapid sea level rise. So even there is some data regarding, according to United Nations Environment Program and Emission Graph, that is UNEP. According to this UNEP, which mainly says that the world which is mainly heading for a temperature rise which is above 3 degrees centigrade this century. So which is double our Paris Agreement aspiration. So because of this, we need to take immediate steps to control this greenhouse gas emission. And if you're talking about especially regarding the vulnerability of India, so we are having a longest coastline. Okay, so we are having a longest coastline here. So because of this, the communities who are mainly residing in these coastal areas, they are very much vulnerable to this sea level rise and even storms. And here this sea level rise and as well as storms in this area, in this coastal area, they will become much more intense and as well as frequent. And they will be accompanied by storm surges, heavy rains and even flooding. So even whenever there is 0.1 meters and 0.1 meters to 0.2 meters rise, which mainly accepted along the India in next few decades, that will cause a frequent coastal flooding. Even just 0.1 meters to 0.2 meters. Let us imagine, okay, 0.1 to 0.2 meters of increase in sea level rise, that will lead to frequent flooding. And next one is the uncertainty regarding a meter or more sea level rise before 2100, okay, 2100 year, which is mainly because of lack of knowledge and even inability to run models. So in this context, what is the need? So we need to go for proper strict coastal regulation rules. And here these rules, they should be much stricter and they should be much not laxer. They should be very, very strict and we need to follow those rules. And next one is government should not insure or bail out speculators, or any coastal community should be alerted in advance. So here the government should also come up with an important role. It should play an important role, mainly alerting this coastal people in advance, and we need to protect during the severe weather events. And this one is, we need to focus on retreat. Retreat should be the part of adaptation strategies for some low-lying areas. So in these low-lying areas also, we need to come up with some important rules and regulations. And this is the gist of this topic. I hope it is clear. And there are two topics like GST Council and collision system. So please refer that, which appeared in page number 6. Already the video is very lengthy, and many students are asking me to decrease the length. But how can I decrease? Right? So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And one more thing I forgot to announce here is, we came up with this current affairs package and mains answer writing program. Actually this course is highly beneficial, and this course is dealing by me itself. So I will recommend to take this course, and this course going to be end. Registration of this course is going to be end by October 1st week. So if you want to join this, please join this. In this course, we are covering current affairs from 5 sources, and we are focusing on mains answer writing practice, and we are also providing prelims test on every Sunday, which is based on current affairs. So details of this course, which is given in description box, and if you want to talk to me directly, you can call to this number 8074765513. By this I am concluding. Thank you so much.